soon as I see it, I'll share it. Yep.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening, and good night for some of you there. Welcome to Facebook Live tonight. I'm joined by a very good friend and a fellow sales trainer here in Australia, Bram Lagrou. Now, over the time that we spend together this evening, we're going to be sharing with you some of the most important strategies that we've ever discovered in the field of sales. Now, over the past 12 months, Bram has influenced more than 34,009 lives. And over the past 5 years, I have been responsible for adding more than $100 million worth of revenues into my clients' companies. So we're going to give you the best of the best. And I promise that this time that you share with us tonight is going to be incredible. So Bram, Adelaide this evening for you, Sydney for me. How's your day coming along?
Fantastic, and always great to join in with great people like yourself, Daniel, and also for everybody joining in. Good evening. Look forward to spending some time together.
It's always a pleasure. And for those of you who are just joining us, Bram's just spent some time with Dr. John Demartini, a personal friend of Bram's, and he's just had his own breakthrough experience. Now, what we know about Dr. John Demartini is he's delivered more than 1,000 of these breakthrough experiences, more than 50 of them each and every year. And I think for me, the greatest thing that's happened to my life is personal development. And I see that Bram's heavily invested into it as well. And for you, Bram, what was your biggest takeaway from your time with Dr. John Demartini?
Biggest takeaway would have I've already had the fortune and the pleasure of being exposed to a lot of great people, including him, Brian Tracy, John McGraw, and quite a few other people. And I think one of the takeaways from Dr. John Demartini is that not only does he a good person that practices what he preaches, I think he really nicely embodies one of his key points, which is all about equanimity. And rather than being, too goofed up and be cocky and take a lot of pride in his far other side of the spectrum and being deflated and perhaps depressed, he says it's all about keeping yourself in the balance. And I really liked how he was talking about himself and others to always bring everything back to that sort of middle zone, which I think was very enlightening, because sometimes what I've noticed is that people, when they get really successful, they get really a bit proud. They start getting a bit cocky and arrogant, and they start valuing their own opinions more compared to other people, right? Or people get really self-critical and they just really start beating themselves up all the time, which typically would then be the people that worship people like Dr. John Demartini. And so I really like how he went about it. 2 days long, this 65-year-old is just bouncing around, doing high kicks like Karate Kid and Jean-Claude Van Damme. And you think, like, 65 years of age, going for 13 hours a day, keeping his spirit up, his energy up, his mental sharpness, his focus, adding value to people. It's really, really encouraging to actually grow old if you have an example like him.
And something, you touched on Brian Tracy there. One of the big takeaways I learned from Brian Tracy was he talks about psychoscoliosis. And psychoscoliosis is a toughening of the attitude. It's the arthritis of the mind. And you're right, you do see these people out there who've got a great mental attitude at 65 and 70 and 75, and it's like they've just come to life. But they've got that great mental attitude. And as we know, and you talk about it, is that 85% of your success comes from that mental attitude.
That's it. And it has got a flow-on effect on everything else. Your neurological system, your physiology, all of it, it somehow benefits. Your emotional state, it all benefits from just getting clear in your mind and leveraging it, train the brain, so to speak, to do what you want it to do.
And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to train the brain. So we're going to touch on two very important topics. One will be rapport, and in business is you have to have rapport. If you have no rapport, you can't make sales. But what makes rapport possible is definitely confidence, and you're going to be talking about unshakable confidence tonight.
That's correct.
So,
now, I'm really mindful that you are definitely a master of the emotional intelligence side of things with the rapport building. I've noticed you in action, and when you were at the National Sales Conference, spoke to our people, they loved you straight away, never been exposed to you. Your rapport building was great. So tell us a little bit more about how that rapport building, how people can go about it.
Rapport, Milton H. Erickson, he was the greatest hypnotherapist who's ever lived. He was also a medical doctor. So he approached hypnosis from a medical perspective. And what Erickson said was that anything's possible in the presence of a good rapport. And I believe that nothing happens in business unless you have rapport. And over the years, I've studied under Brian Tracy especially, and many other masters. And through Brian Tracy, I learned that the top salespeople in the world are masters of rapport. And when you break down the sales process, the first 40% of the time that you're with a client should just be building rapport. You shouldn't talk about your product. You shouldn't talk about your service. You shouldn't talk about yourself. You should just build rapport. And what happens is rapport is the key for the door. So as soon as you've built the rapport, they happily give you the key and say, look, this key unlocks all the secrets. And I was working and training under Dr. Tad and Adriana James. And what they said is that when you have rapport with somebody else, they have rapport with you. It's not manipulation. It goes hand in hand. So when you meet somebody for the first time, you have to start to build rapport. And 55% of your rapport or your communication is through your physiology. And it's very important to be very emotionally intelligent. Now, 5 key areas of emotional intelligence, and the one that we're focusing here is, first of all, self-awareness. Who am I? How do I come across when I'm meeting somebody for the first time? Now, all of us have different mental blocks, and a client that I was speaking with today, he said, Daniel, when I got into the field of selling, I'd told myself and programmed my mind for years that I can't sell. I can't speak to people. I'm not a salesperson. So when he came into building the relationship, he's coming in with a very negative mental attitude. He's telling himself, I can't sell, I'm not a salesperson. And what happens is it changes your physiology. So instead of standing tall and confident, which you're going to talk about, is you come in almost shrunken down, your shoulders roll in, and you start to have this protective type function. And that mismatches other people, because other people want to feel confident in the sales process. They want to feel confident that they're going to do a great deal with you. So you've got to build rapport at the start, and it happens with your physiology. Now, based on your physiology and what you wear is 95% of your first impression. And your first impression only takes 4 seconds. So if you've got negative self-talk in your mind, it's going to impact your physiology. The person that you want to do business with has a look at what you're wearing and how you're standing and how you're moving, and they make a snap judgment within 4 seconds. And then what happens is they go through their mental filing system and they compare your face and your attire. They compare your face and your physiology with all of the other faces and physiologies they've ever seen. And they find a match inside of their mind. And if that match says not trustworthy, you're labeled guilty immediately. And what happens is for the rest of the sales presentation, they smile and say, we're not doing business with you. We're not going to do business with you. And you think, hey, I got the business. They're smiling, but they're saying, I'm not going to do business with this person. And then at the end, the line that everybody hates to hear is, we need to talk about this. We don't have the money right now. We don't have the time. But it's all a smokescreen.
Yep. Or do you got a brochure?
Yeah, you've got a brochure. My real estate coach, he said, Daniel, never send a brochure. He said, just put it in your own trash bin and save a postage stamp.
Yeah, fully with you.
Yeah, to build instant rapport, first of all, you need emotional intelligence. So you have to be aware of what's going on inside of my mind. And when I meet people, I make sure that my self-talk is appropriate for the situation. And I learned probably the best self-talk ever from Brian Tracy. I just spent $10,000 with him. I was doing his Speakers Academy. And he said, Daniel, he said, when you meet people for the very first time, you want to be smiling. And I said, okay. And I got a smile. He said, but Daniel, you got to smile from the eyes. You got to make sure it reaches all the way up to the top of your face, because that's the difference between a fake smile and a real smile, is that the real smile comes from the eyes. So he said, you got to smile. And I said, well, Brian, what do I have to say to myself inside of my head? I'm breaking it down. He said, Daniel, you got to say to yourself, I am very charming. And I looked at him, I said, you what? And he said, you got to say, I am very charming. And he said, say it. And I said, I am very charming. And as soon as I said it, my eyes lit up. I came to life. And he said, now, Daniel, you just got to smile like you've been smoking dope. And I'm looking at Brian, 5 million people you've trained, 100 million lives, and you're telling me I got to smile like I'm smoking dope. And he said, just try it. So I left his office and I went.
What, the dope or the smiling?
Well, I was in LA, so it's legal. I'm not sure which one, but it's legal. And I walked down to Gaslamp District, and Gaslamp District has some of the best restaurants in all of LA. And I just repeated to myself over and over again, I am very charming. I am very charming. And I just kept smiling like I was smoking dope. And Bram, I was walking down the street and people stopped and they were looking at me. And they were looking at me in amazement. I thought, gee, I must be bloody good looking or very charming. I don't know which one it is. And they were smiling. And I walked past the restaurants and everybody was happy. And they said, come in here. And people were saying hello. And I couldn't believe it. Just this transformation in my whole body came with this new self-talk and then smiling. And this is the key to building rapport. You want to come across very charming. You want to make sure you have good self-talk, and you got to smile like you've been smoking dope. And what happens is, in the process of building rapport, is when you smile at somebody, is you're telling them, I accept you. I accept you from wherever you've come from, wherever you're going, whatever's happened in your life, for everything that you have and everything you don't have, I accept you for who you are. And it raises people's level of self-esteem, and it raises their level of self-worth. And because of the law of reciprocity says, if you do something nice for me, I'll do something nice for you. And in building rapport, here's the key, and this is the greatest learning I've ever had, is if you make somebody feel good about themselves, they will want to return the favor. And the favor is they buy your product and service, not your competitors. And if you could take one thing away, take that away. Smile like you've been smoking dope and make other people feel good about themselves. And when they feel good, they'll say, Daniel, you did something nice for me. You made me feel good about me. I'm going to do something nice for you. And I believe this is what the essence of rapport is. But the thing that comes before that is the confidence to do it. You've got to have the confidence to do it. You've got to leave that comfort zone. And I believe that tonight you're going to share some knowledge bombs with us all about confidence, about how to build magnetic confidence. So people are like, wow.
That's it.
So where do we start with confidence?
It's a good point. Well, just so that you know, this is really a great way for me to lead into tomorrow's presentation that I'm doing for about 100 students at University of Adelaide. So they asked me to actually present on confidence and particularly the science behind it. Now, for all those people that don't know me or never heard of me before, I've studied 7 years psychology, became a psychologist in Belgium. And so, but I never, let's say, considered even taking people on, a seat, sit next to them with woolen socks and a goatee and something and say, hey, tell me about your problems here. I never gone there, but I am a psychologist. So I really will want to talk to a little bit about the science behind it here. And there's quite a few things that come together, but let's just say First, let's think about what confidence really is on a physiological level. If you think about the brain, whether in business, you know, people have, and your brain, my brain, everybody's brain here right now, it's got three parts if you boil it down to the essence. And it's important that you really understand how it works, because your confidence will be a direct byproduct of you mastering some of those areas. And other times, if it's eroded, it means that you live too much in some of those centers most of the time. Now, to break it up, you got your hindbrain, the crocodile brain, as we sometimes say, which is the bottom part, the most primitive center, which I'm sure you know a lot about. It's where we live, and it's fight, flight, or freeze. It's all about security. So for example, in business and sales, any person that we get exposed to will always assess first and foremost, is this somebody that will be a threat to me? Is it a predator that will try to eat me, take my money out of my pockets, do the wrong thing? Or is it somebody that might feel trustworthy, so that I can actually stay and relax rather than, you know, take a run or fight? Is it a predator? So that's that first sort of, that first brain. The second brain there is your midbrain, which is where the amygdala and the emotional cortex is housed. That means that you mentioned earlier with the rapport building, people will feel certain ways in our presence, and sometimes those feelings will be positive and the impression will be favorable, or they will straight away have a negative, and it happens in seconds. They don't even need to think about it much. It just happens automatically. It makes them feel certain ways. They either open up and let all the defense mechanisms go, or they will say, hang on, this is my fortress. I won't let you in. And yes, tell to me, it won't happen. Right? Then the third center here is where most of our technical training will go into. And so we will teach people on how to think strategically. We will teach them on how to solve a problem like this. We will teach them on doing this. We will think on how to plan for it. But advanced neocortex, the cerebellum that we then start trying to involve. And this one really, from the customer's perspective, we can only access if the first two were cool with us and slightly intrigued. Very important. So they need to be safe and have peace of mind, feel comfortable. Secondly, there needs to be a level of intrigue that says, there's something about this person that makes me curious about him. It might be the smile that you alluded to earlier, right? You know, the charming smile that just draws people in. But now let's have a look. Right now we understand how the brain works. Coming back now to the confidence level. So how can we build ourselves, use this device in ourselves so that we build our confidence in such ways that people say, this person is attractive, this person is magnetic, this person is charming, whatever you want to call it. And how does it make you feel? Here is, let's say, 3 quick ideas on how you could do it, right? I call these brain hacks. Now, I'm going to talk about 15 of them tomorrow, but I think tonight I'll only zoom in on 3. One of which is the first one. Imagine that all of us are ATMs, all right? ATMs. All of us are a living ATM out there. There's a lot of money that sits behind it, potentially. But how much money could we ever draw out of an ATM if we haven't invested something in it up front? So first made deposits into the account so that later on, if we're ready for it, we can withdraw. Call it withdrawing goodwill, building a relationship, asking somebody for a favor, them doing something nice back to us with the law of reciprocity, that sort of stuff. The ATM will only go to work for you if you have first been a giver up front and invested into it. Makes sense so far, right?
100%.
All right. So now here where's the brain hack comes in. To build confidence and possibly also more rapport with people. Let's first start with ourselves. We are an ATM as well. I call this also the EBA. There's an emotional bank account that our self-esteem pretty much says whether that one is really depleted and low, or whether we have a high amount of credit in our bank account or an emotional bank account that allows us to feel confident and present ourselves with poise, with energy, with captivation, and that sort of stuff, right? And be able then to inspire people. Well, the first brain hack consists in doing 4 things. You can apply it to yourself as you can apply it to others. So you can invest the money in your own ATM, or you can invest it in somebody else's. Here's what comes in. I call it good tax, right? Good tax. Everybody loves receiving good tax, including ourselves, right? It's an acronym. It stands for TACS, tax. T stands for thanking. Imagine now that I say, Daniel, I really appreciate you inviting me to spend some time with you, with your clients and mine, for us to share and have a good laugh together. Thank you for that. Notice what I did. I now possibly deposited a little bit of good tax into your emotional bank account, but it also makes me feel good to be able to say it, right? So as I'm giving, I'm actually also doing something for myself. So it's building my self-esteem. And as I build my self-esteem, my self-confidence also increases. Notice now what I were to do. If I were to now count my blessings every evening, and I were to say, thank you so much to God, to the universe, to whatever you want to call it, the bigger source, I don't care, you know, whatever it is, as long as it's something that you resonate with and you say, I'm grateful for this, I'm thankful for this. What are you doing is you're cultivating an attitude of gratitude, and that builds karma with people, it builds goodwill, and it also builds your self-esteem. That's the first one, the T. The second one is, imagine let's say a cleaner in, you know, you and I both travel a lot to service our clients all around the world. Anytime when we go into an airport and I go into the bathroom and I see a cleaner doing his or her stuff, I'll always make a point on acknowledging those people. And I'll smile like you do, and I'll just say, hey, you're doing an awesome job here. Thank you so much for looking after this place, to make it look as nice as it does and make it smell pleasant to walk into. What you're doing makes a difference. Notice what I did. I acknowledged the person just by already opening up my mouth and just taking notice of them being there. Now, let's bring it back to ourselves for a moment. How often do we actually don't take notice of ourselves? Some people have a tendency to be so self-critical that they're sabotaging themselves and they're not acknowledging themselves. Other people have more the other side of the spectrum. They're acknowledging too much and they get cocky and arrogant. So it's about then acknowledging also our downfalls, our opportunities for growth, rather than having a one-sided perception and being either too good or too negative about it. It's about restoring the balance and put ourselves in a state of equanimity, of poise, of presence, of certainty, of calmness, collection, that sort of stuff. So acknowledging is the second. The third one then is the C for compliments. If we then say to these people, hey, what you're doing is really making a difference, and I really appreciate what you're doing, you're complimenting them. If I say, Daniel, I really love, you know, that little thing on the tie holder there of yours. I've seen it before. It really looks shiny. It's different. I'm making a compliment. Whatever you recognize in somebody else, you're recognizing yourself, right? So what you're giving to somebody else away, you're also building yourself along the way. That's the beauty of it, right? Fourth, last but not least, the smile. Like you, I firmly agree that the smile, an authentic, warm, heartfelt smile, is universal currency. You and I both know whenever we travel somewhere, we may not be able to converse with people, but our eyes and the smiles will make us warm up to somebody, may want us to talk to somebody, and use even our arms and hands and whatever to explain ourselves if we don't have the words. The smile is universal currency. If we invest those four things consciously, regularly, I would even say daily, in ourselves and others, guess where the world will go? Guess where business will go? Everything is really starting to unfold. I call it spreading the magic powder, right? Spreading the magic powder. It works gold. I'm mindful that my 10 minutes is up. I wanted to talk a little bit about a few more brain hacks, but I think I'm going to leave it there. Good tax is probably a good thing to invest in yourself and in others.
You want some of the good tax, and I really liked what you said there, Bram, about acknowledgement. I heard somebody say recently, they said, I'm going to put it both ways, because sometimes the ladies feel they miss out on certain quotes and the men feel they miss out. So I'll give it to you both ways. The quote was, "You can tell a big man by the way he treats a little man." And for the ladies, what we can say is you can tell a powerful woman by the way she treats another woman who can do nothing for her. And acknowledgement is so essential. And it really jogged my mind. And I like that. Giving thanks, giving acknowledgement, giving compliments, and smile. Don't worry about the Australian tax man. He won't make you smile.
not per se. One thing that I really want to underline, because sometimes people that, like you alluded to, the guy that you worked with, your client, who, had this preconceived ideas that sales was a dirty word, that he wasn't a salesman, that he couldn't sell. We sometimes think that sales is a negative thing, but hey, it's all about how you go about it. If you come in and your thanks, your acknowledgement, your compliments, and your smiles is really meant, and it's authentic, you're on a different plane. You're operating from a different level than most of those so-called sleazy people, the manipulators around. That, yes, there's certain people in sales that do it too, but the same applies to people in law. There's good lawyers and there's people that just are after your money. There's, whether you're an accountant, the same thing. There's people that really mean it well with you and want to build a relationship. And there's other people who just don't care and just want to clock the hours, so to speak, or the minutes in their case. So everything is neutral, the perception, and you just can choose either way. If you want to do business with somebody, chances are that you want to do business with somebody that you got rapport with, as you said, somebody that inspires you with confidence that what they can do for you is the right thing for you, and that what they're asking for it is actually a fair exchange.
And these things that we've spoken about tonight, Bram, they're not something that only you and I can do. Everybody can do it. These are all skills that you can learn. And I think the biggest misconception, and talking to my client today, he said that was his old self-talk. And what happened was that old self-talk kept him in a job that he didn't like for 8 years. And there's always consequences, both positive and negative. And the moment that he changed his self-talk and started to take control of his mind was the day that he started to make more money. And, I think money is incredibly important. If your family members get sick, you want to have money so you can get the best healthcare for your family. And sales is the only career in the world that there is no cap on your income. If you decide that you want to make $20,000 a year and that makes you happy, you can do that in sales. And you can make your $20,000. You can do it in a day, or you can do it once a week, or you can do it once a month. You get to decide. But if you say that I've got big goals, and you like Andrew Carnegie was one of the richest men in the 19th century. He had a net worth today that would be equivalent to $400 billion. He was a businessman, and he had to sell his ideas. And his goal was that for the first half of his life, he would acquire as much money as he could, because in the second part of his life, he wanted to give it all back to the community. And that's exactly what he did. So if you want to earn $20,000 a year in a job, you can do it in sales. You can do it in one day. You can do it over one day, once a month, or you can spread it out over the whole year. You can do that. Or if you want to change the planet and you want to make as much money as you can, then give it back to everybody to have a better life, you can also do that. But there's no other job in the world that you can do it. And it's a career, and all sales skills are learnable.
Ain't it a great world that we're living in?
It's the best.
I love it indeed as well.
I was getting my, I believe about planning, and strategic planning is important. And I took my wife down to the local graveyard and the stone writers recently. And she said, "What are we doing here?" I said, "I'm getting my gravestone sorted out." And she said, "Why now?" And I said, "Well, I'm just preparing, for when I'm 100. And she looked and she said, "Well, what are you going to have written on it?" I said, "I've decided already." She said, "What is it?" And I said, "It says, I'll be back." It is a great place where we live.
I love it.
So that being
said, there's so much more to do.
It's true. And you and I will be back. We're going to be back here again next month, sharing more knowledge to share with people who are ready and willing to achieve their goals. So I'm really excited for that.
I look forward to the same. This is just a kickoff meeting for us. Do you want to spend a few minutes just to check in with people if they've got any further questions or thoughts that they want to share with us that we can touch on as well?
Let's do it. So what Bram and I will do now is we're going to open this up for questions. Luke, if you can just grab my phone. Luke's listening over here, so he's going to hear that in about 10 seconds, hopefully. So if you've got any questions about sales, and especially in the area of rapport and in the area of confidence, what we'd like you to do is to go ahead and type it in the chat box below right now. Now, if you're watching this on the recording or on the replay, just type in #replay and ask a question. And what we'll do is we'll start to respond to you. Now, it's kicked in for Luke about 30 seconds. So I'm going to get my phone now and I'm going to check in on these questions. So Bram, what about for you? Any other ideas that you'd like to share as our guests start to ask questions?
You know what? I appreciate the question. Yes, sometimes what erodes confidence might be self-critical thoughts, right? It might be a one-sided perception. So you're only looking at one side of the coin. You might only see the good stuff or the bad stuff. So it's important that we actually find ways to neutralize it. I think another thing that is important, that again, that gratitude stuff, I would really recommend people to get on. When I read the book, The Gratitude Effect by Dr. John DeMartini, I could not imagine what a dramatic effect it would have on my personal life and on my business. Because straight away, I think sometimes in business where things go really, gets more tricky, more challenging and the likes, the first thing that we will do is allow frustrations to get in. And coming back to the rapport building and the likes, physiologically, we can actually measure the heart, the rhythm of the heart that then starts to really get a bit more distorted and a bit more edgy on the screen. And funny enough, the electromagnetic field that both people and animals can tune in with pick up on that exact same stuff, even if they are on a phone on the other side of the world. It's so weird and bizarre how these physical things that are talking about our stress levels, our frustration, our anger, all of that sort of stuff, how that right away erodes also the confidence, the rapport building, and therefore harms business right away. We can measure it. We know how to improve it. And I really recommend people to get serious about this stuff, because the more you, for example, would find disciplines and habits that allow you to, for example, count your blessings and not get caught up, or say to yourself, whenever a challenging situation presents itself, whatever I'm exposed to, I'm ready for it. I come in with all the mental tools, the emotional tools, all the spiritual tools readily available for me to be able to lift my game. Those sort of affirmations I find to be really working like gold. It's a good brain hack, especially when the going gets tough. I'm ready for this. What's the seed of good in this? How is this helping me to raise my game?
The affirmations are incredibly important, and for anybody thinking about affirmations, you need to plan these in advance. You can't just say in the moment, I'm going to create an affirmation. You've got to plan it out, and you've got to think it through. And one of the things that I learned about affirmations was, we call it the law of substitution, is you can only substitute one thought for another thought. So if you've got a negative thought, you have to substitute it for a positive thought. And if you plan out your affirmations in advance, you'll be prepared. So in the moment that you need it, it'll be there ready for you at the top of the mind. And for me, I think the best one I've ever learned is something that I say to myself every night before I go to bed, is I say to myself, I believe something wonderful is going to happen to me today. And what happens is this activates the law of expectation. And as I keep telling myself this affirmation, I believe something wonderful is going to happen to me today, I just put it into my mind and I put it into my mind. And what happens is any negative thought, any stress, or any worry immediately gets cancelled out. It neutralizes it immediately. And then the final thing I'm thinking before I go to sleep at night is that something wonderful is going to happen to me today. And then the law of expectation kicks in, and I expect every time I breathe in and breathe out that something wonderful is going to happen to me today. And it always does. And I've trained my daughter in this, and I say to her, we get into bed at night and we cuddle as dads like to do with their baby. And I say, cup noodle. She says, yes, Dad. She knows the question that's coming. And I say, I forgot. What do I need to say to myself? And she goes, Dad, you need to say, I believe something wonderful is going to happen to me today. And I say, and then I repeat it. And I said, is that right? She said, that's right, Dad. I tell you every night. And I said, okay. And I said, now, where do I have to say that from? And she says, Dad, you've got to say it from the heart. It's got to come from the heart. Now, this is knowledge from a 5.5-year-old. And she's been saying that for a year. Like, gee, where have I been for 40 years if she knows that now? And then I said, well, Nikita, what do I say to my head? She said, oh, that's easy, Dad. She says, head, go to sleep.
I like it. She knows straight away to go for the heart. Good stuff.
Straight to the heart. And I just believe that something wonderful is going to happen to me. Yes, things go wrong in my life. Bad things happen. However, just like you said before, there's always a positive in it. If you're willing to look for it and you're prepared, you will find the moment of glory in there. And affirmations will change your life.
So true. And they always say that the best teachers come dressed in workman clothes.
Yes. So
that means whenever it's hard, guess what? You're paying your tuition. That's when you have to go through it. Now, I just noticed, Dan, we got somebody here joining us with a question. Shall we just have a look at it? What will you advise to a beginner? Thanks, by the way, Christine Cheng, for that question. Let's have a look at how we can help you there.
Okay. Well, for those who are so shy, okay, beautiful. Well, Christine, great to see you there. Christine's from Malaysia. For building rapport, one of the most important things that I've learned in public speaking is that if you put 100% of your energy, mental energy, and emotional energy on the other person, what happens is you stop worrying. You stop feeling shy and you stop feeling anxious, because if you're focused on yourself, you're going to start to tap into any worrisome emotions. But if you start to put 100% of your energy on the other person, you stop thinking about yourself. And what I learned about other people in sales is that your customer is the most important person. Your customer, and I don't know if you've realized this, but your customer enables you to live the lifestyle that you want. Your customer goes to work for 40 hours a week. Most people drive in Australia about between 500 and 1,000 hours a year just to get to their job. They get abused by people. They worry about them losing their job. They've got to pay their house. And then the little bit of money they got left over, they come and give it to you. What an honor that person would work so hard for you to be able to live your dream life. And this is how I think about my clients, is that when they come here, and people work with me, they might spend $10,000 for coaching, but they might have saved that for years. They might have sacrificed other things. And I thank them so much because they enable me to live my dream life. So when they're there, I give them 100% of my attention and I stop thinking about myself. And I would say in the past that I wasn't always a confident person. I'd say that I was shy in areas, but what I've learned is that I'm focusing on the other person. I stop thinking about my own shortfalls or my own problems. And then the magic happens.
It's a really good point. The magic definitely kicks in. If I can just quickly add something to it, Christine, just bear in mind when Daniel mentions focus on the other person, there's two ways on focusing. You could focus on what they're doing and try to read if they like you or not like you. I think Daniel means another type of focusing. In sales, we want to really help the person find what they want. So it's about attention to understanding where they're coming from, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to achieve. And the more you focus on that, yes, the more your attention is somewhere outside of you, which therefore makes you less caught up in feeling shy and negative, and eventually not certain about yourself. It's just that type of focus. I think it's really strong to do it. And great question, by the way.
And especially in your field, Christine, as well, in the field of professional selling, is that these people, and this is what I've learned from being married and from having living life, is that most people in their life, people listen to them, but they're never truly heard. People listen, but they don't always hear. And God, if there's a God, or whoever created us, gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should always use them in that proportion. So use your ears 80% of the time and your mouth 20% of the time to ask really good questions. And Jack Welch, they used to call him the neutron bomb when he was running General Electric. What he said was I forget now. He said a lot.
Jack Welch.
Jack Welch. It'll come back to me. What your job is as a salesperson is you're a consultant. And how a consultant consults is by asking very good questions. So think through your questions and ask excellent questions, and then listen intently to everything the client has to say, because people listen to them, but they don't always hear them. And the moment that you hear them, you'll be able to help them solve their problem. And they'll look at you as the most important person in their life for the time that you have your relationship with them. And that'll take all of your shyness away. And I think the world's most successful salespeople are the consultants. They ask good questions, and that's what a consultant does. They ask questions. So if you think through your product and service, Christine, and think about what these people want to achieve, and in your industry, in Nu Skin, remember, beauty is one of the biggest industries in the world. They're always promoting beauty products everywhere, and people want to look younger. They want to look more attractive, and that's what they're coming for. And if you can help them figure that out, solve it with your product and service, they'll buy from you and they'll recommend their friends all day, all night, and you'll be fine.
How beautiful. And it's true. Yep.
It is true.
I don't see, is there any other questions that we would have here? We got quite a few people, pretty much like you said, from all around the world. So Kuala Lumpur, UK,
Ireland.
Yeah, from people from everywhere. Ireland. Yep, it's good stuff. Thanks for joining, everyone.
A pleasure. Well, we look forward to giving you a lot more value next time. So till then, have a wonderful day, Bram. It's always good to see you there, and I look forward to our time Daniel. Next month also.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. It was good to see you. All the best tomorrow as well.
Thank you so much. Ready for Grow Your Business in Sydney. An exciting day planned.
All the best, everyone.
Talk to you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio.